White heavy checkmark disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction, inspired by real historical figures and popular Hollywood legends. While the settings, such as Mae West's Ravenswood apartment, are authentic and well-documented, the events that unfold in this narrative are dramatized for the purpose of entertainment. Any tour buses crisscross the boulevards, carrying curious According to legend, Mae West had lived in the penthouse suite for over 50 years, refusing to leave even after her career had slowed down. Rumor had it, she never truly left. "We're here to tell her story," Sarah said confidently, pushing her sunglasses up as they stepped into the ornate lobby. The front desk clerk, an elderly man named Gerald, gave them a wary glance as they signed the visitor log. "You're the ones making that ghost." The apartment itself was breathtaking: curved windows, gold-accented walls, and antique furniture that looked as if Mae had just stepped out for a moment. Everything had been maintained exactly the way she'd left it. Her vanity mirror still stood in the corner. A faint scent of roses lingered in the air. "Could have been one of us," Trent reasoned, though he didn't sound convinced. "No one was behind her," Louise said, enlarging the frame. "It's not casting from anyone. And look at the shape. Doesn't that look like a woman in a vintage dress?" They decided to call it a night and review the footage again in the morning. As the team began unpacking their sleeping bags, having opted to stay overnight in the apartment to capture authentic reactions, Sarah caught a glimmer of movement out of the corner of her eye. She turned sharply. Nothing. Later, as Maya tried to sleep in the guest room, she swore she heard someone humming. A sultry melodic tune, almost like a 1930s ballad. "Did you guys hear that?" she whispered through the walkie. "No," Trent replied groggily. "Just sleep." But none of them truly did. Outside the building, the wind rustled through the palm trees. Inside, in the silence of the night, the heavy perfume of roses grew stronger. The following morning, the team gathered around the dining table, sipping coffee from paper cups, and this apartment wasn't just her home, it was her sanctuary. Sarah leaned forward, interested. So she might have deliberately left something behind? Some kind of imprint. Maybe, Maya said. And get this, when she passed away in 1980, people in the building claimed they still saw her. Cleaning ladies reported hearing her voice. Neighbors heard her typewriter clacking away late at night. And one tenant even claimed she woke up to see Mae sitting at the edge of her bed, smiling. Trent scoffed lightly. "That's got urban legend written all over it." Louise looked up. "Maybe. But why does it keep happening in just this apartment?" They decided to take their investigation outside the walls of the Ravenswood. They scheduled interviews with longtime residents, staff, and historians who had studied Mae West's life. Their first stop was with Evelyn Grant, a 78-year-old woman who had lived in the building for over 5 decades. She met them in the courtyard, wearing oversized sunglasses and a pink scarf, her style still echoing old Hollywood glam. "You're looking for Mae?" Evelyn said with a coy smile. "Darling, she never left. I hear her heels clicking down the hallway at night. The walls remember her." Evelyn explained that she had met Mae once in the laundry room in the late 1970s. She was gracious but firm. Very particular. That apartment was her entire world. Their most chilling encounter came from a woman named Lena, who had once worked as a housekeeper in the 1990s. "I never went up there alone," she said bluntly. "Once, she wrote her own scripts, shaped her own image, and refused to conform. But even legends don't escape loneliness. In this apartment, she lived alone." While reviewing nighttime B-roll in the hallway near Mae's old dressing room, he noticed the door creak open behind him. The lights were dim, and "Mae, we're not here to mock you. We're here to tell your story with love and respect. Please, let us." That night, they decided to sleep with the lights on. But the lights had other plans. Around 2:30 a.m., a loud pop echoed through the living room. The overhead chandelier sparked, then died. Moments later, the bedroom lamp flickered violently before dimming to black. Louis scrambled to grab his flashlight. "Was there a power surge?" Trent asked, pacing. "No," Louis said, checking the circuit. "The building has power. It's just this unit." They sat in the darkness, waiting, listening. Then came the humming. The same 1930s melody Maya had heard before, now louder, clearer, like someone standing just beyond the hallway. Sarah slowly moved toward the sound, camera in hand, her breath shaking. As she rounded the corner, she gasped. A full-length figure stood at the end of the hallway. Not solid, not translucent, but shimmering as though made of faint light. The woman wore a long satin gown, her platinum blonde curls pinned neatly. Her eyes glowed faintly, not threatening, just aware. Mae West. Before Sarah could raise the camera, the figure vanished, melting into the shadows like mist. Sarah ran back into the living room, pale and shaken. I saw her. I saw her. It was her. The group stayed close together the rest of the night, too terrified to sleep. The next morning, Gerald the doorman met them in the lobby. You've been stirring her up, haven't you? He asked, without judgment, just a knowing look in his eyes. Is that a bad thing? Maya asked. Gerald tilted his head. Not if you give her what she wants. But you'd better figure out what that is. Fast. Before she gets impatient. Back upstairs, the group sat around the breakfast table, silent. The evidence was growing too strong to ignore. The strange sounds, the perfume, the written message, and now a full-bodied apparition. Mae West was still here. And she wasn't just watching. She was trying to speak. After 3 nights of escalating encounters, the team knew they couldn't go forward without direct communication. Mae West wasn't just haunting the apartment, she was reaching out, trying to be understood. Maya was the first to bring it up seriously, a seance. We've already confirmed her presence, she reasoned. But we don't know why she's still here. What if she's trapped? Or angry about something we haven't uncovered? Trent, ever the skeptic, resisted. We're filmmakers, not ghost hunters. We should document what's happening, not stir it up. Sarah shook her head. It's already stirred. The only way to get control of this is to let her speak. If she wants to talk, we should listen. By that evening, they prepared the space. In the center of the apartment's lavish living room, under the grand chandelier, they set up a round table and dimmed the lights. Candles flickered from every corner, casting dramatic shadows on the ornate wallpaper. Louise set up multiple static cameras, while Sarah arranged vintage items from Mae's era around the table, old lipstick tubes, a feathered boa, a copy of her film She Done Him Wrong. All of it was meant to make the space feel familiar and inviting. They sat around the table, Sarah, Maya, Louise, and Trent. Maya, who had studied spiritual rituals during her college anthropology days, led the session. Her voice was soft, steady. We invite the spirit of Mae West to speak with us. We are here to understand you, to honor you. If you are present, please show us a sign. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. The room was still, the silence broken only by the occasional creak of the floor beneath them. Then, one of the candles blew out, without any wind or movement. Just a quiet puff and then darkness in that corner. Louise whispered, "Did you see that?" Maya nodded, eyes closed. "Mae, if you're here, we want to know what you need. What are you trying to tell us?" Suddenly, a chill swept across the room. The temperature dropped so quickly that they could see their breath. The vintage items on the table began to tremble slightly, lipstick rolling on its own, the feathered boa rustling like it was being touched. Then came the voice. It wasn't loud, and it didn't come from any direction. It was inside them, like a whisper in the mind, yet clearly audible. Sultry. Assertive. Unmistakably Mae. I was never finished. Trent's hands twitched. Did anyone else hear that? They all nodded. Maya leaned forward, her heart pounding. Mae, what wasn't finished? There was silence for a moment, then a thump, hard and deliberate, from the hallway that led to Mae's old writing room. Louise grabbed the camera and slowly approached the door. It was shut. On the doorknob, something had appeared, a red kiss mark, faint but perfectly shaped, as if pressed there by invisible lips. Inside the room, they found the answer. In the back of a closet, behind some loose wall paneling, Sarah discovered an old leather satchel. Inside was a brittle folder containing a yellowed script titled "The Devil in Pearls." It was unlike any of her known works. The paper was dated 1939 and bore Mae's handwritten notes in red ink, lines crossed out, jokes sharpened, characters reworked. At the bottom was a studio logo from a company that had since gone defunct. This never got made, Maya said in awe. Louise filmed her flipping through the pages. It's a full feature-length script. This might have been her final piece. Sarah nodded. This could be what she meant by unfinished. Back at the table, they resumed the séance. We found the script, Sarah announced. We'll take care of it. We'll make sure people know. The room remained silent. Then a warm gust of air passed through, so gentle it tousled their hair and made the candle flames dance. The chill lifted. The heaviness that had haunted the apartment for days seemed to ease. And from the corner of the room came a final, sultry whisper. This time aloud. This time unmistakably real. Tell them I was more than a body. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. We will, Mae. They sat in silence for a long while, the candles slowly burning low, the apartment feel. This is gold, Sarah said, leaning over the script. And no one's ever seen it. Which begs the question, Louise added, why was it buried behind a wall? Mae didn't hide things without a reason. They spent the day cross-referencing the script's characters and themes with historical records. Maya discovered something startling. The Devil in Pearls bore a striking resemblance to the real-life power struggle Mae had with studio heads in the late 30s. She had written several scripts that were rejected, shelved, or altered without her consent. Some executives even accused her of being too controlling, too provocative, too independent. And this script, according to notes in the margins, was her response. Her revenge. Look at this, Maya pointed. No man owns a diamond unless he digs it himself. That's a line from the script. And she underlined it twice. Trent finally looked interested. So, this was her shot at exposing Hollywood. Maybe she planned to go out swinging. Sarah nodded. And maybe they stopped her. They contacted a retired film historian, Walter Crane, who specialized in lost scripts from the Golden Age. When he saw scans of The Devil in Pearls, he was stunned. As Sarah spoke into the camera, detailing the story behind The Devil in Pearls, the chandelier in the living room began to sway gently. There was no earthquake, no wind, just a slow side-to-side motion. She knows we've found it, Maya whispered. Sarah nodded, continuing. This script, as they stood in front of the building later that day, Sarah turned to the group. We're going to give her the ending she never got. People will finally see what she was really capable of. Back at Ravenswood, they packed up their equipment. The apartment felt lighter now, as if some invisible weight had lifted. As Maya zipped her backpack, she glanced at the vanity mirror one last time. There, in red lipstick, was a final message, this time neatly scrawled across the bottom corner. Thank you, darlings. No one spoke. No one needed to. Mae had found her audience again. But they all understood. This wasn't just about a ghost story anymore. It was about restoring a voice that had been silenced. And they had just brought that voice back to life. With the script safely delivered to the Women's History Archive and plans for a public tribute in motion, the team believed the haunting might subside. But they were wrong. Whatever peace Mae West had briefly shown them evaporated by that night. In fact, something had shifted, grown stronger, darker. The crew was scheduled to spend one final night in the Ravenswood penthouse to capture closing footage and film their reflections. As the sun dipped below the Hollywood skyline, they entered the apartment with an odd mix of closure and unease. The air felt denser than before. The floral scent, once subtle and elegant, was now sharp, almost suffocating. Louise was the first to comment. Something's off. It feels angry in here. Sarah hesitated at the door. I thought we did what she wanted. Why would she still be upset? Maya frowned. What if we woke up something else? Not just Mae. Spirits sometimes feed off energy, attention. We've stirred a lot these past few days. Trent, unusually quiet, looked around with narrowed eyes. Or maybe this isn't over. Maybe there's something else she wanted us to see. That night, as they began recording a sit-down interview in the living room, chaos erupted. The camera's battery, fully charged, died within seconds of rolling. Louise swapped it out. The second battery drained just as quickly. The lights flickered violently, casting stuttering shadows across the gold wallpaper. Sarah, mid-sentence, paused and looked to the hallway. Did you hear that? A loud slam echoed from the guest room. They rushed in, only to find the door to the hallway had closed and locked behind them. None of them had touched it. Trent twisted the knob, it wouldn't budge. Then came the humming. Not soft like before, but louder now. Desperate. Repetitive. The same melody over and over. And behind it, the sound of clacking heels across the wooden floor, pacing back and forth in the hallway just outside. "I think she's angry," Maya said, her voice shaky. The vanity in the guest room mirror fogged again, this time without anyone near it. 3 words etched themselves slowly into the condensation, still not finished. Luis backed up. "What else is there?" "We found the script. We gave it back." Then Trent shouted, "The closet." He ran to the corner closet they hadn't opened since the first night. Inside, above the clothing rod, was a small loft space. He pulled down an old leather case, covered in dust and sealed shut. Inside was a vintage reel of film, labeled simply, "Screen Test, Confidential." They stared at it in disbelief. Luis gently held it in his hands like a relic. "A film reel," Maya whispered. "But there's no projector here." Trent snapped his fingers. "The building has an old media room in the basement. I saw the sign the first day. Maybe it still works." Against their better judgment, they carried the reel down to the dark, cobwebbed basement level of the Ravenswood. Sure enough, tucked behind a rusted door was a forgotten screening room. The projector was ancient, but after some careful work and splicing, Luis managed to get it rolling. The reel began. A grainy, black-and-white screen flickered to life. Mae West appeared, without her usual glam. No lights. No studio makeup. Just Mae alone, reading from a script. The Devil in Pearls. Her voice was raw, emotional, filled with pain. Nothing like the confident, flirtatious persona the world knew. This was her truth. Then she stopped reading and looked directly into the camera. Her eyes stared through the screen, as if seeing them all. "They told me to sit down and shut up," she said. "But I was never one to take orders." The reel ended in static. Silence followed. When they returned to the penthouse, it felt colder than before. The walls creaked with restless energy. A picture frame had shattered on the floor. The vanity chair was overturned. Sarah sat down on the sofa, exhausted. She wanted the film, not just the script. That's what she meant. Luis nodded. That was her final performance. The one no one ever saw. Maya whispered, "And we were the ones who found it." They understood then. Mae West had not just wanted her voice heard, she wanted to be seen for who she really was. Not a caricature, not a seductress, but a woman with rage, brilliance, and unfinished business. And now that they had uncovered both the script and the film, one question remained. Would she finally let go? The discovery of the screen test had changed everything. They had uncovered Mae West's raw, unfiltered performance, a side of her that had never been shown to the world. And yet, the penthouse apartment had become increasingly volatile since the film reel had been revealed. Something was still unsettled. The team's earlier theory, that Mae just wanted recognition, now seemed too simple. Her presence wasn't fading. It was intensifying. The following morning, Sarah awoke to find the vanity mirror completely cracked, but not shattered. The fracture lines formed a perfect star. In the center, drawn with fresh lipstick, was a single word, betrayed. It wasn't just about the film. Or the script. It was about what had been taken from her. She wasn't just buried by history, Maya said gravely. She was silenced. She tried to fight back, but someone destroyed her career from the inside. Backed by the clues in Mae's original script, they dug deeper into studio records, thanks to their contact Walter Crane. It was there they found the final piece of the puzzle, an archived memo from 1939, handwritten by a high-ranking executive at Silver Dominion Studios, the very studio listed on Mae's lost script. The memo was brief but brutal. West's latest submission poses reputational risk. Suggests shelving indefinitely. Public image must remain controlled. Do not screen test. Do not circulate. Attached to it was a studio log stating that The Devil in Pearls had been classified internal only and that any associated material, including Mae's unauthorized screen test, was to be withheld from all publicity channels. This was sabotage, Sarah whispered. They locked her out of her own career. Luis sat back in his chair, stunned. They erased her. And that's when the hauntings took a dark turn. The apartment became nearly unlivable. Cabinet doors slammed throughout the night. Furniture rearranged itself while they slept. Once, Trent awoke choking on the strong scent of perfume, his chest heavy, lungs burning. Another night, Maya felt someone grab her ankle beneath the covers, ice-cold fingers, holding her in place. There were bruises on her leg the next morning. The cameras recorded flashes of a full-bodied apparition pacing the halls in a frenzy. Her once gentle humming had turned into something warped and impatient, like a record spinning too fast. She's not just restless, Maya said, her eyes wide with fear. She's angry, furious. And I don't think it's just at them. I think it's also at us. Why? Trent asked. Because we know now, Maya replied. We've seen the truth. And that means we're part of the story. And if we don't tell it, she'll never let it go. The team made a decision that night. This was no longer just a documentary about celebrity hauntings. This was about justice. About rewriting a legacy that had been manipulated and buried for nearly a century. They edited together the footage, the lipstick on mirrors, the mysterious reflections, the film reel of Mae's screen test, the studio memos, and even the broken artifacts. They included interviews, the audio whisper caught during the seance, and the final message from the vanity. Then, Sarah recorded the final narration. She was a woman ahead of her time. And for that, they tried to erase her. But Mae West never disappeared, she waited. She waited to be heard. And now, her voice is echoing louder than ever. On their last night in the apartment, they hosted a private screening of the documentary Rough Cut in the same room where Mae had once entertained Hollywood elites. They set the projector against the white wall and played the reel of her screen test one final time. Her eyes, strong and vulnerable at once, looked straight into the camera. Her voice, both trembling and fierce, filled the room. I told them I'd come back stronger. I always do. When the reel ended, the lights flickered, but didn't fail. The apartment went still. They waited, breathless. Then, from the hallway, came one last sound. A soft, distinct clap. Like someone applauding. Slow, elegant, and fading away. The floral scent returned one last time, but this time, it was gentle. Not overpowering. Not threatening. Maya whispered, she's leaving. Luis looked around. I think she's satisfied. As they packed their gear for the final time, Sarah turned to the mirror above the fireplace. The crack from earlier had vanished. In its place was their own reflection, untouched, unaltered. And then, as the sun rose over Hollywood, they walked away from the Ravenswood penthouse. For the first time all week, the doors didn't creak. The elevator didn't groan. Mae West had taken her final bow. The Ravenswood stood quiet behind them, its Art Deco facade glowing softly in the golden morning light. For the first time since they arrived, the air around it felt still, no tension, no chill, no heavy perfume lingering in the shadows. Mae West was gone. Or rather, she had finally been seen, heard, and released. The team returned to their studio in New York a few days later, exhausted but inspired. They threw themselves into editing the documentary, now titled, Still Here, The Ghost of Mae West. What had begun as a paranormal passion project had evolved into something far deeper, a reclamation of truth, a tribute to a woman silenced by the machine she once ruled. In the weeks that followed, news of the lost script and recovered screen tests spread. The Women's History Archive held a public exhibition, Mae West, and censored, featuring the preserved script, artifacts from her penthouse, and a restored version of the screen test reel. Film historians, feminists, and movie buffs alike flooded in. At the opening, Sarah gave a heartfelt speech. This isn't just about a ghost. It's about remembering the real woman behind the legend, the writer, the fighter, the rebel. Mae West didn't ask for permission to exist. And now, long after she's gone, she's finally being heard without filters, without edits, without fear. That night, their full documentary aired on a major streaming platform. Within hours, it began trending. Reviews praised it not just as a ghost story, but as a powerful historical correction. Online forums buzzed with clips of Mae's screen test. Hashtags like #JusticeForMae and #SheWasMoreThanABody trended for days. Back at the Ravenswood, Gerald the doorman stood alone in the lobby, watching a news segment about the documentary on the small television behind the desk. A smile crept across his face. "Well, Mae," he muttered, "looks like you finally got your spotlight back." Upstairs in the penthouse, a new tenant had recently moved in. She was a screenwriter, unaware of the apartment's ghostly history. One evening, as she sat by the vanity working on a script of her own, her mirror fogged up ever so slightly. Not enough to write in, not enough to scare, but just enough to let her know someone had once sat there too. But there were no more slamming doors. No humming in the dark. No lipstick warnings. Just silence. And peace. Meanwhile, the team was invited to appear on talk shows, film panels, and horror podcasts. People wanted to know, was it real? Did they fake it? What do they believe now? Luis would always answer first. "I believe Mae West was never just a ghost story. She was a suppressed truth waiting to be uncovered." Maya added, "We didn't summon her. We found her. And we helped her finish what she started." Even Trent, who had entered the project a skeptic, admitted, "Let's just say, I'll never look at mirrors the same way again." Despite the attention, Sarah kept a framed copy of Mae's handwritten line from the lost script on her desk. It read, "They can steal my spotlight, but they can't rewrite my fire." One night, months later, Sarah received a handwritten letter in a vintage-style envelope. It was unsigned, with no return address. Inside was a folded note, the paper aged and elegant. It simply read, "Thank you, darling. They finally heard me." There was no explanation. No reason. But she knew. It was Mae's last goodbye. And that was the final piece. Mae West hadn't just haunted them. She had trusted them. To carry her voice forward. To finish her unfinished story. To ensure she wouldn't be remembered just for her curves and clever quips, but for her courage, her creativity, and her unwillingness to be controlled. Her haunting had not been vengeance. It had been a plea to not let her be forgotten for the wrong reasons. And now, she was free. 78.